Good afternoon, welcome back to the Mini Performance Workshop. It's Sunday afternoon. Sunday morning we spent going on a bike ride, so I'm having an easy day. Yesterday I did some work on Bumblebee, stripping out the engine bay. So I'll give you a quick update on how far I've got and what I'm going to do next. So as you can see, I've got most of the ancillaries removed around the engine bay, just working my way in, bit at a time, trying to find space to work. Next job will be to jack it up and get down underneath and get the exhaust manifold off. One thing that I've been looking at is that if changing the gearbox and that moves the engine back, how much room am I going to gain at the front to fit a radiator for the charge cooling system? Well, look at that gap down there. That is one finger. So I've got a 1 finger gap between the bulkhead and the manifold. So if I have to move the engine back, that's going to be very close. And I do know that when I originally put this engine in, I moved the engine forward 15 mil. So if I move it back 15 mil, that gap is going to be absolutely nothing. So yeah, so I've just, while I was obviously got it all stripped out, I've just been looking to see how much room I've got for putting things. I've had this thought of using a electric water pump and controller to help with the cooling, but I don't know how that's going to fit, because most people that seem to use these electric water pumps use a front mounted radiator. Well, I can't put a front mounted rad in, so yeah, it's all up in the air at the moment. So basically what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get it jacked up and get working underneath and get the exhaust manifold or the exhaust system off, the hardy spacers undone, and the remote gearbox mechanism, and probably make that do for today, because as I said, I'm fairly knackered. Right, I'm calling it a day at that. As you can see behind me there, it's pretty much stripped. Got the exhaust off, got the hardy spacers undone, engine mounts are undone. Basically the only thing left to do is to undo the supercharger feed lines for the cooling fluid for the supercharger and the speedo cable, and it'll be ready to lift out. Welcome back to the workshop. Another Saturday afternoon spent getting ourselves busy. What we did earlier on was we made space for the new arrival in the workshop, which you will see probably in a week's time, I would think. Just depends how much filming I get done on Monday and the period after that, because of working things. After we cleared a bit of space, Chris left and I've been working on Bumblebee again. I've been stripping out. Well, this morning I stripped out the gear linkage mechanism and how it was bolted under the car, which was a little bit of a pain because it's awkward to get at. what I need is a lift. So I did that this morning, and then back this afternoon I've been stripping out the last few bits in the engine bay, which is the supercharger cooling system, which is the reservoir that sits in the left hand side of the engine bay, and then the oil cooler itself and the pipes that go to the supercharger. What I did find was the supercharger oil level was low in the main canister, and I think about a slight leak out at the back of one of the pipes that goes onto the oil cooler, and it's been slowly misting out over time, and that's why the level's low. So I'll have to keep a better eye on that next time. What I have looked at is repositioning the oil cooler so it's more in the airflow at the front of the engine, and I think I've got a way of doing it. It isn't really possible to do it how I want with the engine in, but once the engine's out I'll be able to make the brackets and stuff to get it where I need. I'll show you that now. So the plan is to fit the oil cooler here this time, slightly forward of the bodywork, just a tiny little bit, something like that. And I think that still keeps within the rules for supercharger to oil cooler level. I think that the instructions say that the oil cooler has to be below the center line of that reservoir, which I think it is as it sits there. So that's where I've got to make the brackets that go down from the bottom of there down onto the front edge of the subframe, but I can't do that with the engine in. So what I'll do is while the engine's out I'll make that, and it'll sit something like that, I think. Perhaps I might have to take a little bit out of the back edge of the grill where it sits across here, but we'll see how we come on after I've got it mounted. But I think that's going to work, and that's going to be a lot better for airflow than it was before, and it frees up a little bit of space down the bottom of there where it was tucked away, not getting a lot of airflow. So that's it, everything's undone. Next job will be to lift the engine out. I don't know exactly when the engine's going to come out, perhaps next week. It sort of does depend on what happens with this new arrival over the coming days. But yeah, so next bit of video will probably be on the new arrival, and then the bit of video after that will be taking the engine out of Bumblebee. And then I've got to split it and do all the rest of the bits of work I need to do. I still need to get my parts back from JDM, where they were getting TIG welded up. That's for the water cooling system for the charge cooler. And I need to send the main shaft and the support bearing away to CAD to get the spacer resized to suit my main shaft. And I'm probably going to buy their electric water pump output brackety piece and then try that. But I've been looking to see where I can put the actual water pump and things, and I've got to find somewhere for the water pump for the charge cooling system. I don't know where that's going to go, and I'm trying to find somewhere for a water pump for the actual water system. I think it'd be much easier with a club and engine bay, but there you go. So that'll be it for this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Like I said, that'll be on the new arrival.